imagine if the Mind Flayer from Stranger Things existed in real life? A mind capable of controlling bodies, manipulating behavior, and turning you into its puppet. Well, something like that already exists in nature. It doesn't live in the Upside Down. It lives in tropical forests. And it's called Cordyceps. It's a fungus that invades its victim and takes control of its body as if it were an avatar, with a single goal: to survive and multiply. And no, it's not a metaphor or a myth. Welcome to Beyond the DNA, the channel where we discover that biology can be so much more, and more unsettling than any series. Today, we're going to talk about Cordyceps, the fungus that inspired Stranger Things, The Last of Us, and a whole bunch of other nightmares. Ophiocordyceps unilateralis is a parasitic fungus that mainly lives in jungles like those in Thailand or Brazil. Its favorite victims are carpenter ants. It turns them into real zombies, forcing them to move, climb, and die exactly where it wants so it can spread. In this video, we're going to see how it manages to manipulate the nervous system. What exactly does it have to do with Stranger Things, and whether something similar could happen to us? First, a quick recap of the series. In Stranger Things, there's the famous Upside Down, a parallel dimension to ours, dark, damp, and full of creatures connected by the same consciousness. And that's where the Mind Flayer lives. A kind of collective intelligence that controls all its beings as if they were part of the same body. It's a hive mind that uses its victims, controls their movements, speaks through them, and turns them into living extensions of itself. Sound familiar? The Duffer Brothers were directly inspired by a documentary about Cordyceps, a parasitic fungus that turns ants into true biological slaves. Both the Mind Flayer and the Cordyceps dominate from within. One does it with telepathy and the other with pure biochemistry. But the key question is, how does the fungus actually do it? How does it manage to control a living body without having a brain of its own? It all starts with something so small you might not even see it with a magnifying glass. A spore. It lands on the body of a carpenter ant, and although it looks like a simple speck of dust, it's actually a miniature biological bomb. The fungus releases specialized enzymes, such as chitinases or proteases, which gradually dissolve the protective layer of the exoskeleton, which is made of chitin, an extremely tough substance similar to biological plastic. Once a small hole is opened, the spore germinates and the fungus invades the inside of the body. Inside, the Cordyceps completely changes its form. It's no longer a spore, but a network of hyphae. And what are hyphae? You might be wondering. Well, they're microscopic filaments that move between the muscle fibers, organs, and nervous system. Each hypha branches out and connects with others, creating a living mesh that spreads throughout the body. During this process, the fungus releases toxins and digestive enzymes, which break down tissues and absorb nutrients. But with surgical precision. It never destroys the brain or vital organs too soon. It needs the ant to stay alive and functional at least for a few days. As it feeds, the Cordyceps infiltrates the peripheral nervous system and begins to chemically communicate with nerve cells. It releases molecules that interfere with the normal transmission of signals between neurons and muscles. The result is that the ant loses coordinated control of its entire body, as if its movements were random impulses. And it is at this point that the ant's behavior changes completely. It becomes disoriented, leaves the nest, and starts to walk aimlessly, moving away from the rest of the group. Scientists believe this is no coincidence. The fungus may suppress the social pheromones that normally keep ants together, leaving it completely isolated and vulnerable. To the rest of the colony, that ant is no longer one of their own, but in reality, it is still alive. It's just that the real pilot now is the fungus. At this point, the Cordyceps has already taken control from within, even though the ant's brain remains technically intact. And this is where things start to get truly mind-blowing. To understand how the fungus manages to control the ant, we need to look at how its nervous system works. The brain of an ant, just like ours, communicates with the muscles through motor neurons. These neurons send electrical impulses that travel through the nerves until they reach the muscles, where a connection called the neuromuscular junction is formed. There, a kind of chemical conversation takes place. The neuron releases small vesicles that contain neurotransmitters, messenger molecules that carry the movement command. When these vesicles fuse with the membrane, the neurotransmitters are released into the space between the neuron and the muscle, a place called the synaptic cleft. In insects, the main neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Once released, this molecule binds to specific receptors found on the surface of the muscle, causing the ion channels to open and allowing a flow of positive charge to enter. This current generates a contraction, making the muscle move. Afterwards, an enzyme called acetylcholinesterase removes the excess acetylcholine so that the muscle can relax and prepare for the next signal. The system is almost perfect, but the Cordyceps sabotages this mechanism from within. As it invades the body, it releases chemicals that mimic or block the action of acetylcholine, and some resemble it so closely that they fool the receptors. Others block the ion channels and prevent the signal from reaching its destination properly. The result is that muscle contractions become uncontrollable. The muscles tense up, relax at the wrong times, and movements stop making any sense. It's as if the ant's brain is pressing the right buttons, but the body no longer responds as it should. The command to move forward turns into a spasm. The command to turn ends in an uncoordinated jump. And little by little, total control passes from the brain to the fungus. But that's not all. Cordyceps also alters another key molecule, octopamine, which in insects acts as a kind of biological adrenaline. Octopamine regulates the level of alertness, orientation, and the motivation to move. By manipulating it, the fungus changes the insect's entire behavior, making it lose interest in the rest of the group, stop responding to signals from other ants, and start seeking out higher and more humid areas, exactly the places the fungus needs to reproduce. Let's keep watching. In summary, Cordyceps doesn't control the ant's mind. It simply hacks its chemical and electrical system. It doesn't control what it thinks, but rather how it moves. It's literally a biological remote control, of course, fine-tuned by millions of years of evolution and with a precision that seems straight out of science fiction. When the fungus has taken full control, the ant no longer acts of its own will. It behaves as if following an invisible command. But every movement is part of a perfectly calculated biological plan. Guided by impulses that no longer belong to it, it climbs up a plant and stops at a very specific height, about 25 centimeters above the ground. And this is no coincidence. This area has the perfect temperature and humidity that the fungus needs to develop and spread its spores. Without knowing it, the ant has become its vehicle and its thermostat. Then comes the final moment, known as the death bite. Cordyceps causes a simultaneous and permanent contraction in the muscles of the jaw. By altering neurotransmitters, the fungus keeps the calcium channels in the muscle cells open, causing the muscle to remain rigid and unable to relax. The result is constant pressure, a bite so strong that the ant is literally welded to the leaf. But the fungus doesn't stop there. Its filaments penetrate the jaw muscles and reinforce them as if they were biological fibers, ensuring that the host's body doesn't come loose or fall off even after it dies. Only when the cordyceps is completely secured does it release enzymes that kill the ant and begin to break down its tissues from the inside. Within a few days, the exoskeleton breaks open, and from inside a long stalk sprouts, emerging right from the back of the head. At the tip of this stalk, a capsule forms, filled with spores, ready to burst and release thousands of particles into the air. Each spore that lands on another ant restarts the cycle, and the forest becomes a stage for a silent infection. Beneath the leaves of these jungles, scientists have found what they call zombie ant graveyards. Hundreds of bodies in the same position, biting the underside of the leaves, all at the same height, all dead in the same way. Nature repeating the same script over and over again. The upside-down world from Stranger Things may seem like pure fantasy, but many of its ideas have roots in real biology. In the series, we see black fibers and living filaments spreading everywhere, connecting creatures and people to a single hive mind. And this disturbing image is very similar to how fungi work in nature. Fungi, including cordyceps, are made up of a network of microscopic filaments called hyphae, which, when joined together, form the mycelium, an actual underground network. It can extend for kilometers and connects trees, plants, and other organisms to each other. Through them, fungi exchange nutrients, chemical signals, and electrical signals, creating a communication system that some scientists compare to the brain of an ecosystem. So if you think about it, forests already have their own upside-down world. A silent and perfectly organized network that connects everything, all beneath our feet. And when you look at the scenes with the mycelium, those black veins branching out along the walls or moving under the ground, it's impossible not to see the parallel. The difference is that the mycelium does it with telepathic power, while Cordyceps achieves it through pure biochemistry and evolution. But the big question is, could a fungus like Cordyceps ever affect humans one day? The short answer is no. And the long answer? Not yet. Don't worry, we're not going to see a zombie apocalypse. At least not for now. Current Cordyceps is exclusively adapted to insects. Its structure, its enzymes, and its metabolism are designed to function inside small, cold bodies covered with chitin. In contrast, our bodies are much warmer, with a stable temperature of about 37 degrees Celsius, and our cells have completely different membranes and receptors. At that temperature, Cordyceps spores die or stop growing, and if anything tried to get in, our immune system would destroy it before it could spread. But of course, fungi are not static organisms. In fact, they evolve very quickly. With climate change, the planet's temperatures are rising, and that forces many species of fungi to adapt to warmer climates in order to survive. Each generation develops mutations that allow them to survive a little more heat, and little by little, some are getting dangerously close to the challenge. The thermal range of the human body. In fact, some have already reached it. The fungus Candida auris appeared just a few decades ago and can already survive at temperatures similar to those of humans. What's more, it has become resistant to many antifungal treatments, turning into a very serious threat to health. It doesn't turn anyone into a zombie, of course. But it shows that fungi are learning to live in our world. Nature doesn't need to invent monsters. It designs them little by little with the patience of evolution. And Cordyceps is the perfect proof that the line between science and fiction is sometimes much thinner than we think. And keep in mind, this fungus isn't the only master of control. There are parasites capable of controlling the behavior of their hosts, worms that make crickets jump into water so they can reproduce, or protozoa like Toxoplasma gondii that make mice less afraid of cats. And this is just so they end up being eaten and the parasite can complete its cycle. Biology is full of behavioral hacks. Maybe that's why stories about fiction like Stranger Things or The Last of Us fascinate us so much, because deep down they're not that far from reality. If you've made it this far, congratulations! You've just survived the weirdest biology class you've ever had in your life. Do you think a fungus could ever control humans? Or maybe it already does, and it's called TikTok? Leave your theory in the comments and tell me what other topic you'd like me to bring to the channel. See you next week with another topic that proves science can be scary too. And that it's really cool. This is Beyond DNA, and today you've taken a look inside a fungus.